Good evening. Welcome to the City of Tempe Board of Adjustment, our meeting for April 23rd, 2025. The time is now 6:10. The City of Tempe Board of Adjustment is authorized by the Arizona Revised Statutes and the City of Tempe zoning ordinance. Its function is to grant relief where a literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance would result in unnecessary property hardship, to interpret provisions of the zoning ordinance, and to hear appeals from any person or city official aggrieved the decision of a person responsible for the enforcement of the zoning ordinance. The board has the City of Tempe Community Development staff summary reports on the items being considered at this meeting and will use this report in their deliberations. Now we'll do a roll call, starting with
Brett Siegel. Michael McCaffrey.
Kaylee Palmer.
Kevin Morrow.
Ron Kagi.
Sean McCarley.
And just to note that we can't have all the microphones on at the same time. That's why they sometimes don't pop on. All right, so we have 6 members of the board. We have a quorum, but we are short 1 member. Staff introductions, we have from Community Development Director Jeff Temulevich. We have Deputy Director Community Development Ryan Levesque. From the City's Attorney's Office, we have Matt Mansfield. We have Diane Kaminsky, the Principal Planner. Tonight we'll be hearing from Lucas Jensen, the planner, and we have Jennifer Daniels, our admin assistant, and Jason Wolf doing the media, and we will try to keep our microphones on. During the public hearing, all applicants and interested citizens, when your request is called or if you wish to address the board, please make sure you filled out one of the citizens' request forms. I have 3 of them. They're located on the table by the doors. Give them to Jennifer. When I call your name, you can step up to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. We'll assist you with monitoring the time. Today's agenda items, we have 3 of them somewhere. We have, first item is the consideration of the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was all the way back in November of 2024. Do I have any comments from the board about the meeting? Hearing none, do I have a motion regarding adoption of the minutes of that meeting?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second to approve.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye by raising your hands. 3.
Do I have to abstain because I was not there?
Yes, you do.
Abstaining.
So I have
2 abstentions.
4 in favor, 2 abstentions, and none against. So the minutes are approved. Second item is the request for a variance to reduce the required setback from the required rear yard setback from 8 feet to 1 feet for a detached accessory building in the R1-6 zoning district for the Powell residence located at 1659 North Central Drive. The applicant is Tony Powell. First, we'll be hearing from the applicant. Do I have the applicant?
You can use the.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak with you today. We appreciate your time, so we will be brief. My name is Tony Powell, and this is my husband, Dave. We are here to request your approval for the setback variance from 8 feet to 1 foot for the accessory building in our backyard at 1659 North Circle Drive. Just to tell you a little about us, Dave has lived in our home for 29 years, and I've lived there for the 10 years. We love living in Tempe. We ride our bikes to Tempe Town Lake. We enjoy hiking at Papago. We take our dogs to the park. And as longtime residents, we take pride in our house and in our yard. When COVID hit, I was told to work from home full time. So like many people, I started out at our kitchen table, which didn't work very well. It was terrible ergonomically. There were way too many distractions, including all of the snacks in the pantry. But we were told it was the new normal, and so we bought an office desk and a chair and moved that into our room, which I was hoping our bedroom, so that I would have a little more privacy. It was still hard. I could hear the dogs barking. They knew I was there, so they would scratch at the door, and the space was really cramped. In addition to getting used to working from home full time, I couldn't get away from work because the desk was right next to our bed. We decided an office outside of the house would give me privacy and give us extra room for storage. We are a blended family, and my son also lives with us. He also uses the space to work and to watch TV. I still work 3 days from home each week, and the office has been a saving grace, especially when I have meetings where the camera is required. When we started talking about the office, the contractor said we could build it in the corner because of the way our yard is shaped. It would be out of the way, and it would require less construction due to the way our backyard slopes and the amount of room that we had to work with. We have a lot of existing hardscape, and putting it there would avoid us having to tear all of that up, which is why it ended up in that location. We now have some slides and would like to briefly highlight a few things that support our request. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just going to speak to a couple of photos that we've attached tonight. This first one that you can see is just the finished product. Just wanted to give you a glimpse of what it looks like. And you can kind of get an idea of how it's situated in the backyard, towards the rear and towards the side. This office or this building blends perfectly with our house. It's the same color as the house. It has the same stucco as the house. It has the same asphalt shingles as the house. It's basically a mini version of our house. So it blends very well. Not that you can really see it from the street or anything, but it does blend very well with the house. And it's been a very nice addition to our backyard. This second picture just basically gives an aerial view of our general lot and a little bit of perspective of how the office is situated in the backyard. I'll go into more detail in a second, but this just gives you an idea of the limitations that we have in the backyard, even though it's a big lot overall. This is the plat map of our lot, number 64, highlighted in green. And you can see that it's basically a reverse pie shape. It's on a corner of a cul-de-sac. So the large part of the lot is in the front of the property, and it narrows considerably in the back side of the lot. You can see that the surrounding lots are of various sizes. In general, most of the lots in the neighborhood are rectangular shape, and they range anywhere from 70 feet to some of them at 100 feet or so. The cul-de-sac lots in the neighborhood can stretch to way over 100 feet if it's a normal pie-shaped cul-de-sac where the large portion is in the back. But as you can see from this, the back of our lot only has 36 feet of property line in the back. There are about 4 of these reverse pie-shaped properties in our neighborhood. All of them are less than 40 feet. So even though we're not the only one, we're not necessarily unique. There aren't that many that have this constraint. Most of them, as I said, are rectangular, and they range from 70 to 90 feet in dimensions on the back. This slide here gives a little better perspective of some of the other issues that we're dealing with in the back. This is the site plan for the property, and you can see the 3 highlighted colors. The property, in addition to having the narrowing of the lot in the back, we also have a topography issue. The lot is terraced or tiered, and you can see the area highlighted in yellow is the upper portion of the terracing. That portion is actually at grade with our alley, and the office is situated on that level. It's flat and at grade with the alley. The house itself and the hardscape around the house, the patio and the sidewalks, all highlighted in blue, are actually 16 inches lower than the tier highlighted in yellow where the office is. The lot continues to slope downward towards the street, as much as 2 feet by the time you get to the green highlighted area of the sidewalk. So from the sidewalk to the alley or the yellow area in the backyard is anywhere from 36 to 43 inches in elevation change and grade change. So you can see that we have these issues that severely constrained the placement of the office. And one other point, it's kind of a minor characteristic of the lot, is the sewer line you can see highlighted there that goes from the back of the house out to the alley, and it kind of clips the edge of the yellow section there. So we were mindful at the time not to build on top of the sewer line in the event that at some point, which it has already in the past, maybe 15 years ago, I replaced the sewer line. But that could go again, so I didn't want to have to deal with issues of having a building on top of the sewer line. So that's one of the other reasons why the office was positioned where it is. These last two pictures are just to give a little more perspective. This is from the house level, looking out towards the office, and you can get a feel for the slope there with the pathway as it goes up to the alley, and you can see the office sitting on that tier in that portion of the yard. And just to give a basic understanding of the positioning. This last picture is just the rest of the yard, and you can see where that tier, that terrace level, winds all the way around the side of the house and ends at the side gate. And so that just shows that this lot has these narrowing and these terracing constraints, which really limited us to one section of the yard to place the building. That's all I have, just as a general overview for the reasons behind positioning it where we did. Appreciate you taking the time listening to us tonight, and I know we have others to speak as well. So thank you.
I had one question while I had you up here. The terracing in the backyard, is that something, was the house terraced like that when you bought it, or is that something you did at some point?
Yeah, no, it's always been that way, and I believe it happened when the original owner who bought it in 1961 bought the house. The retaining wall that you see there it's stuccoed now, but it's built out of the same block as the fences in the neighborhood, that pink block that you can't even really buy it anymore. So 29 years ago when I moved in, that was already there. We just stuccoed it to kind of bring it up to more current appearances. But yes, both sides of the backyard, those tiers, those terraces were in place.
In addition, the patios and all of the hardscape was existing.
Oh yeah, all of that was already there, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll be hearing from Lucas Jensen from the Planning Office.
All right. Thank you, Chair Morrow, members of the board. Lucas Jensen, Planner 2 with Community Development. Tonight, we're hearing the request for a variance to reduce the rear yard setback from 8 feet to 1 foot for a detached accessory building. This is in the R16 zoning district at 1659 North Circle Drive in the Cavalier Hills neighborhood in North Tempe. The accessory building in the back was constructed without building permits. And, based on Maricopa County aerial imagery, appeared sometime between 2023 and 24, so right around that time. Here are some additional photos provided by the applicant. The first is the west side of the property. This looks, at the existing home with the accessory building in the rear. One image from the alleyway, and then the image looking out towards the alley where you can see the grade change that was mentioned. Same photo that they showed before, and then a view from the rooftop as well. For accessory buildings, the Zoning and Development Code for detached accessory buildings is going to, the height of that structure, or setback of that structure rather, will be dictated by the height. A 14-foot tall accessory building requires a minimum setback of 8 feet from the side and rear property lines. I'll show you those setbacks when we move on to the site plan. And this, it's important to note, is measured from grade. Grade is going to be the top of curb at the center of the front property line, as opposed to a local grade. So we're taking that measurement at that lower street level measurement and accounting for that in the height of this structure. The site plan here shows the accessory building located in the back of the property. Because the front property line is actually the kind of northwestern oriented section in the cul-de-sac, the rear line is actually the one on the far east. So that's the rear property line with the one abutting the alley designated as a side setback. Regardless, both of those require an 8-foot minimum setback. It does meet the required setback off of the alleyway, off of that side, because that's measured from the midpoint of the alleyway. So it's provided a 14-foot setback in that location. The area that it is not currently meeting the zoning and development code is that eastern rear property line where the measurement is given as 1 foot from the property line to the building wall. These are the elevations. You can see the measure of finished floor at approximately 2 feet 9 inches above grade, with the ridge height being 14 feet 1 inch, requiring that slightly increased setback. A couple of things to note on these elevations. If you look at the east elevation down in the bottom left corner, you'll see a window. We've consulted with building safety staff as a standard condition of approval. They will need to obtain building permits for the structure, and that's something they've been in contact with to notify them of the applicable building code. And as a requirement, typically within 3 feet of a property line, there are no windows or eave projections allowed. So modifications may be made to this building to meet building code as a result of this potential variance approval. The floor plans, it's a very simple layout. It's a single floor, a couple windows in the front, and then the clerestory window on the rear, facing that adjacent property where the setback is 1 foot. It's approximately 136 square feet, so a relatively small office building. This is the image that the applicant provided showing the approximate grade. One quick thing to note is that where the green section is shown at approximately 3 feet to 3.5 feet below the, or 3 to 3.5 feet below the grade of where that office is constructed, we would technically take the measurement off of that kind of northwestern property line, but using this as an estimate of what those elevation and grade changes are on the property. The other one, this is a screenshot from the city's utility map. So this shows the sewer line connection coming from the rear. This is not necessarily an exact location, but it does bisect through the middle of the property because that sewer connection is coming off of the sewer main in the alley. So variance approval criteria 1, the subject property is it's a corner lot that narrows as the property line approaches the alley and results in a restricted buildable area in that rear yard. Combined with the topography and grade of the site increasing as you move back towards that property, towards that rear property line. Documentation shows that the building is approximately 3 feet above grade, and that sewer line runs right through the rear of the property down the center. Due to these circumstances, staff considers this to have the lot to have special circumstances, including its shape, topography, and the location of utilities. Strict application of this code will deprive property owner property of privileges enjoyed by property of the same classification in the same zoning district. So there are 3 variances that have been approved in the past. 2 of them were located on one property. To reduce a side yard setback from 7 feet to 0 feet for an existing carport, and then a second variance on that property to reduce the front building setback for an attached garage. And then similarly, a variance to reduce the rear yard setback from 15 feet to just over 11 feet for a bedroom addition on another property. These are all within a 600-foot radius of this property. There are several other lots that have a similar shape to this one. However, the majority are rectangularly shaped and do allow for a larger buildable area in the back. Specifically in regards to the flexibility for locating an accessory building. Strict application of this code does deprive the property owner of privileges available to the majority of properties in the area in that same zoning district. Again, so the above analysis, approval of this variance does not constitute a grant of special privileges. The special circumstances are applicable to this property are not present elsewhere in the same subdivision in those similarly zoned districts. And then the last criteria, a variance may not be granted if the special circumstances applicable to the property are self-imposed by the property owner. The special circumstances of the sewer location, lot shape, the lot size, and the topography, those were not conditions created by the property owner and do significantly impact the buildable area. So we do not feel that this is self-imposed. With all variance requests, the applicant is required to host a neighborhood meeting. This was held on March 24th from 6 to 7 p.m. I was in attendance for the first 45 minutes of that meeting. There were 18 residents that signed in to attend the meeting. I believe the sign-in sheet was provided as part of the attachments for this. All of the residents I spoke with that were in attendance at the meeting were generally supportive of this request and had no major concerns. Staff did receive 2 emails from the adjacent property owner, directly to the east that does abut that, where that accessory building was constructed, in opposition to the request, and they shared concerns that the variance, allowing the variance on this property would potentially restrict the buildable area on the adjacent property. Staff, myself, has consulted with building safety regarding this concern and did verify that there would be no new restrictions on the adjacent property as a result of this proposal. Applicable building code would still need to be met on the adjacent property, and there would be no additional restrictions based on the proposal on the other property. Staff's recommendation is to approve this subject to conditions. The conditions of approval are standard conditions of approval, that this variance is valid for the plans as submitted, and that this is valid only after building permits have been obtained. And I'm open for any questions, should you have any.
Thank you, Chair. So the presentation by the applicant indicated that this is going to be used for an office or 2 workspaces in an office space itself. I saw there was one letter in support that referred to it as an ADU, accessory dwelling unit. And my question is, if this is we approve this variance for the use of an office, if in the future the applicant, the property owner, wished to make this an ADU, would it then still be in compliance with the applicable ordinances, setbacks, et cetera?
So yeah, to clarify that, so you're correct, it is not, as of this time, an ADU. It would be permitted to convert to an accessory dwelling unit if there were no changes made to the footprint of the building. I would have to verify with our code and with other staff at that size. I'm not sure that 136 square feet would be allowed as an accessory dwelling unit based on size restrictions.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Putting myself in the one property owner that had opposition to it, my thinking would be noise and light. And so I'm curious if there's any room on the conditions to make sure that there's no light that encroaches to the neighbor's property, and that after I moved out of my parents' house, my biggest complaint I got from my parents was that they wish they could send my brother to a separate room so he could do his DJing in there. And I know that you said that your son does use that. I don't know what he's doing, but any noise would be worrisome to the adjacent owner. Light and noise would be my concern as the adjacent owner, so.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So noise and light, so the noise would be dictated by the City of Tempe's noise ordinance. They would have to adhere to those requirements. In regard to light, Diana, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe our light limitations for at single-family property lines is measured at a half-a-foot candle is what it's restricted to. If you could verify.
I think that would be on a new development. When we have single-family residences as an individual property, we don't control the design of them. However, I do think it's important to note that there will be required changes to the building to meet building code. So the window, the clerestory window that's on that eastern rear property line would need to be removed to meet the building code. So there wouldn't be any fenestration where light might trespass. You could add a condition that they not add security lights to the outside of the structure that might create glare into the
Floodlights or
neighbors.
something, yeah.
That would be appropriate.
I had a question about the sewer line. It strikes me as a bad idea to build an accessory dwelling unit over your sewer line. Is there anything in the zoning code that would prohibit, or is there an easement that would prohibit building over it?
Chair Morrow, to my knowledge, there's nothing in the zoning and development code that would restrict building over a sewer. I do not have information about the required building code requirements for that. My only thought is that it would be highly advisable to put structures over a sewer line, but I'm not aware of any code restrictions that would have.
Typically, we have the public sewer ends, ends at the alley. When it hits the property line, it becomes private sewer. So I don't know if there are engineering standards for that, but it would be the property owner's discretion for their private sewer line to not have anything that would impact that.
All right. Yeah, it seemed like a bad idea to do that, but was just curious. Any other questions? Seeing none. Okay, so we now turn to the public comment portion. I have 3 public comment cards. First is Mr. Anthony Champy.
Sorry, I've come into the property.
Well, your penmanship meets my pronunciation skills, but Mr. Champy, we have received, if I remember you correctly, we got some emails from you,
Yes,
and we have read those.
yeah,
But you have 3 minutes.
okay. I lived at 1619 North Day Drive, which I still own, and I bought 1653 North Circle as an investment property. It's right next door. So I wasn't living there at the time they were constructing this property. When I went there and saw that the building was there, there's also a gutter that literally is in my yard. It's past the building because there's an eave that extends past the wall. And there's a gutter to catch the rain, which I appreciate because those walls are very soft anyway. But it just is extremely intrusive. And where that sits up on a higher level, it literally shades the entire backyard, which is good during the summer and not so good during the winter. I own another property in the same subdivision. I'm a huge fan of the subdivision and keeping it consistent. I've permitted and enclosed the carport into a garage. One of the things that Lucas had brought up was the property on Saguaro. That property's extension that was granted in order to put an additional carport was against the alleyway, not against somebody's house. And this is literally eclipsing the yard. And the neighbors are very nice. It's not against them, but it's still, if you can't just go build something that you feel like building and then permit it later. I'm in a situation now where I've got 2 properties looking at this giant building, and it looks giant from the yard because the yard's so small. In the pictures that they showed, they could have moved the building further forward into the AstroTurf without encumbering their sewer line, but they chose to set it back because it gave it better curb appeal from their back window. I think that was more for them than it was the sewer line. And so in all reality, I own 2 properties looking at this ADU, or you can call it an office building, which could become an ADU. And so for me, it just becomes unsightly. And I think it negatively affects the value of my property. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't think I do. Is there any questions from the board?
I lived there in the early 2000s, and I bought the other one in 2011, the one next door to theirs.
Well,
So
thank you.
both my properties are about theirs.
When you're on the street, since the back of the subject property is the highest point of the property,
Mhm.
are you able to see the top of this accessory
You can see
structure?
much more than the top.
Okay, it'd be interesting if there was a line of sight exhibit from the street that could have been prepared to see but
I mean, I can pull up a picture on my phone, but I don't have an exhibit prepared. I didn't know that I could submit something besides verbally.
Jason, would you be able to put up the image, the photo from Lucas's presentation from the alley, please?
I think they were asking for the street, from the front street, which is a very different height.
This one? Which,
So you can, oh,
which picture did you want, or sorry?
If you go to the staff slides, yep, sorry, no, that's okay.
You said that. I'm sorry. Wait, when?
So try, stay at that, go one more. Yeah, that might be the closest thing to a view from
so this is the picture all the way to the left, at least my left, is showing the side of their house. You can see the building is behind it. That's not another person's house. That's not the building that the front of the picture is not the building that they built. The building is the place that you can see the ladder and the peak behind it with the security light on it. Almost the whole building. And you can see the eave if you follow their pony wall and you get to where their pony wall meets the yard separation walls. You can see the eave sticking down over into my yard. It's not all the way into my yard, but the gutter is.
And to my point earlier, it does look like there's a floodlight on the building, which one of them being angled towards your property line.
I didn't really look that closely.
Chair, I do have a question probably for staff. As far as the gutter situation, when they go through the permitting process, would they then need to remove the gutter since it's
Yes.
encroaching?
So for building permit purposes, they have to move the gutter back, the eave, anything that does not meet the building code.
Thank you.
Was there a survey for the plan?
No, this was never submitted for building permits. There was no plan
I
set.
just figured
as part of-
you had mentioned that they met with you for planning. I didn't know if there was a survey done because, I mean, every time I've built everything, I've always gotten a survey.
No, there was no survey provided for this application.
That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Not right now.
Okay.
But thank you. I have two other comment cards, one from a Kathy Brand.
Thank you very much for the Board of Adjustments here. I'm here in support of the PALs. I've known them for quite some time, and what they've built is a beautiful structure. I've walked past their house many times, my daughter and I have, and have not noticed it. So I reside at 1601 North Sunset Drive in Cavalier Hills. Knowing the PALs, that this would not happen again. I actually have to blame a contractor on a lot of this because they trusted someone that was going to build something that was not permitted. And they would not do this, but again, it's aesthetically pleasing, and it actually helps the neighborhood. So as I said, as I walked past it with my daughter and I didn't even know. It's not even noticeable to me. So I appreciate your time, but yes, I'm in support of the variance for their office in the backyard. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you. I have one more comment from Elaine Caraway.
Good evening. I've lived at Cavalier Hills for almost 28 years. I've been pretty active in the community and work with the citizens on a lot of issues. This project, unfortunately, I'm in the same boat as them. Several years back, hired licensed contractors. They didn't pull permits, big disaster, blah, blah, blah. But I got to go to the DRC, not to Board of Adjustments. What they've done, they hired an architect, so there was no intent to deceit or do anything. If you go down Circle, I don't know if any of you went by the property to survey it or look at it. It's actually the nicest property on the street. As Kathy said, if you walk by it, you don't notice it at all. I'm confused with this gentleman over here saying he lived there while they were building the structure, because it's a rental. It's been vacant almost a whole year. As far as overhanging on their property, it is not. Nothing is hanging over their property. I don't know the issues with this gentleman, but the neighborhood overall, we had neighbors coming to our home when they found out what was going on with this office space, wanting to sign. What can I do? I just had an email 2 days ago. Can I come down here? What can I do to help? Because, it wasn't their intent to end up in this situation. My house is similar to theirs. It's on a cul-de-sac. My property is mainly in the front yard. I had to, when I did my addition, had to come out forward. I have no backyard. I have a side yard and a front yard, which I have tried to utilize as best as I can. But the community overall has rallied around the Powells, and I hope that you guys approve this, because it is not an eyesore. It is not going to cause any drama. I find more drama with rentals that people rent out in our community that don't maintain them properly. With that being said, if you have any questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer. I was part of the group that retained the signatures and asked for emails from the citizens of our neighborhood. And as I stated, this neighborhood was up in awe that this was happening, because that's not their character. So thank you very much, because I see my time's just about up. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll invite the applicant to come back up and respond to any of the public comments or staff comments.
Well, as Lane stated, I don't believe, first off, the picture on the left here isn't from the street. I'm standing on the block wall right there, so specifically to get a view of the building from the side of the house. From the street, quite a distance away again, and down below, it doesn't look at all like that. And as Kathy said, and Lane said, you don't really see it when you're walking by. You have to stop and look for it to see it. It's, narrow in between the homes there. So it's not, in my mind, an eyesore, obviously. I don't believe the gutter overhangs into the adjacent property. The gutter is right on the property line. I put that there specifically so water doesn't run off the house and then into the adjoining property. If I took the gutter off, which I'm happy to do, the water would fall right over the edge of the shingles there down on my side of the fence. So I don't believe there's an issue unless it's a torrential downpour. Maybe some of it would project off into the neighbor's yard. But as far as the neighbors behind us, considering this an eyesore, I would question that. There used to be an awning there in that exact spot. Nobody complained about the awning. There used to be a large orchid tree back there. And if you know orchid trees, they're messy and leaves blow everywhere. That was never considered an eyesore to anybody or a nuisance in terms of leaves everywhere. So I don't believe it's an eyesore to anyone, especially from the rear. And even from the side, you can't see this building at any time from inside the house on the adjoining property. So it's not as though you would be sitting in a family room and all you see is a large building out your window. You can't see it unless you come out into the backyard and look that way. And as I said before, there used to be a structure there or a big tree, so it didn't really obstruct. If any views were obstructed, they've been obstructed for 50 years probably. So just in response to that, that was, I think, the only one that I had a response to.
He also mentioned that it eclipses his property. It is higher, but so is our entire yard. He has a giant tree right there, which is growing very well. These are recent pictures. The picture on the very far left, that big giant tree in front of the little bird of paradise there, that's his tree. And so it is thriving. It gets plenty of sun, so it's not eclipsing his property. My son uses it to watch TV. He also, has a desk where he can do some work or look at videos or whatever he does. He's 30 years old. He does not party. He, is living with us. He's trying to get on his feet. And he rarely stays in the office past 9 o'clock. He doesn't usually even have the light on. The TV is under those windows there. So the TV is facing towards the door. And you did mention that there is a security light. That security light falls down directly on our property. And that's, for safety in case we have to walk back there. It's motion detected. So if he is coming out of the office late at night, that's the light that turns on so that he can see where he's going.
And it
So
only
it's-
comes on for 30 seconds before it automatically turns off, so
Right.
it's not on all the time.
Right. Thank you.
Any questions for them? Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, do we have any thoughts? Okay, I guess I'll start. I came in today thinking this was going to be really easy. And the neighbors' comments have given me an amount of pause because I am somewhat concerned at I guess this might become a question for staff regarding the building permitting process. We would be granting them a variance for a 1-foot setback. So it'd be 1 feet from the property line. So the eaves or gutters would have to be 1 foot from the property line. If my understanding of what we're being asked to grant is accurate. So that would potentially resolve the neighbors' concerns regarding that anyways, which might require some modifications to the existing structure. And I'm getting some nods from staff. So that alleviates part of the neighbors' concern. I think it meets it meets all 4 definitions of what is required for a variance, because this is not self-imposed. This is because of the property, both its shape and its topography. Looking at the setback requirements, which are controlled by the height, this building's really only 11 feet because the additional 3 feet is from the grade measuring. So I think it was an 8-foot building requires 0 setback, but that would require them to put in a 5-foot ceiling, which is not practical. So with a couple reservations, I'm inclined to support the variance request. Do any of the other board members have thoughts?
I do think it meets the 4 criteria as well, but to the neighbor's point, just does it devalue his property? And and I don't know if that's a question for us to answer, but just something to put into consideration.
I don't think it's one of the 4 criteria we're supposed to consider. Maybe it's one that I don't think it's one of the 4 criteria we're supposed to consider.
Well, I guess I have one, thank you, Chair. Just one more additional question for staff, just for clarification. So if the property owner to the east wished to build a similar structure, 14-foot high, they would also be required to have an 8-foot setback from the common property line. Is that correct?
Yeah, if they were to construct a detached accessory building at 14 foot tall from grade, it would be an 8-foot setback from the side
Okay.
and rear.
And so they can reduce the setback by reducing the height of the building as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. So again, if the property owner to the east wished to do a similar building to this with less than an 8-foot setback, they would be in the same situation as this property in that they would be required to have a variance as well. Less than 8-foot setback. 14-foot building.
That's correct.
Just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you.
Do I have any other comments from the board? Everybody who wants to call the question?
I guess I do have just want to add some more context. Thank you. I'm not ready to make a motion yet, though.
No, feel free.
You know, this is, again, a scenario where a building was built without permits. Understand that a contractor was involved. Understand, if I'm not mistaken, that an architect was involved as well. I'd like to think that between two professional organizations, Register of Contractors and the AIA, that between the two of them, they would have been able to determine that a building permit was required. So I'm a little, I understand that the property owners had reliance in the fact that they were hiring professionals to construct this building. On the other hand, it was constructed illegally and not with the required setbacks. I don't believe that due diligence was done prior to the construction of this, so I don't think I can support this variance. Thank you.
Ron, let me just ask you just as a counter argument, if they were coming to us with no building currently existing, would you feel the same?
If there were no, maybe. I guess it depends on, again, it's the same scenario. If they were coming with no building and the property owner to the east still had concerns about his ability to construct on the property, the topography of the lot, the shape of the lot, I agree is not a self-composed scenario. I also believe that they could have moved the building closer to the sewer line without encroaching on top of it, which would have reduced would the variance not have been required at all? Hard to say. I'm not sure what that dimension is between the sewer line and where the corner of the building sits, but it certainly could have been moved further away from the property line. So no, I don't think I would have supported that. Thank you.
Chair, I do have a question for staff. I know detached regulations are different in every city. Can you help me understand why they would need a permit? I know there's some exceptions if like it's under 200 square feet, or is it in Tempe, all accessory structures require permits, or because they have utilities?
So to answer, like, it's kind of both of those. So if there's, plumbing, sewer, electric, anything like that to any structure, it will require building permits. If there's, no electricity, no plumbing, no sewer, utility connections, then it's that size threshold. But in this case, it meets both the size threshold and the provision of electric utilities that requires building permits.
And what is the size threshold?
It's going to be 200, anything larger than 200 square feet or over 8 feet tall.
So it's the height. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So does this building, existing building that is currently being used, does it, obviously it has electricity because there's computers in there. Is it plumbed? So I guess my long-term concern is that this could be converted into an ADU that does not meet the ADU requirements. So I guess that's a question. Is there plumbing to the structure? No plumbing. Okay, thank you.
Is that something maybe you'd feel comfortable putting in a condition that no plumbing? Is that something we could do? Is say no additional utilities be added or this not be converted to an ADU? Is that a stipulation that we can put on this? Or restrict it by the plumbing?
Well, members of the board, it's incumbent upon me to remind you that what's before you today is a variance application. Sorry. I just want to remind the board that what's before them today is a variance application, which is a single request to modify a setback requirement. There are 4 standards that the applicant must meet in order to have that variance approved. Your role is to look at the presentations and the evidence presented here today and make a determination as to whether the applicant meets those 4 requirements. That's essentially it.
I could add something regarding our ADU requirements. They are allowed at a 5-foot setback for ADUs, but there's also requirements for the livability of the space. And as Lucas mentioned earlier, the size of this is 136 square feet. It may not meet the standards for an ADU, but even if they did, they would have to come back for building permits for any work that was done for conversion to that use.
So you brought up an interesting point. So if the ADU, just because that is a concern, the minimum setback is 5 feet, and that's based on the use. If they come back and want to convert it to an ADU, do they have to come back for a different variance because this is for a detached structure versus an ADU?
Well, an ADU, as a detached structure, they would
So it's
already
all
have the
encompassing.
variance. They would have the
Okay.
variance for 1 foot. There's no change to the structure itself. If they're not making it bigger, they're working within the footprint of what was allowed by the variance, but they would still have to get building permits for that change.
Okay, so it doesn't depend on the use then? Okay.
My turn again. Thank you, Mr. Mansfield, for that reminder of what the focus and the narrow way that we need to look at these things. And I apologize that I brought in some external things that may not be applicable. So when I go back and I look at the 4 conditions, I have to agree that they meet. The lot certainly has special conditions. Topography, number 1 seems to be met. Number 2, I'm a little fuzzy with, because the other variances that were approved in the area are not really similar. I guess the bedroom addition could be one. Number 3, special circumstances are applicable that are not present elsewhere. Sure, you're right, the pie shape, the reverse pie shape does exist in other lots within there, but this one certainly is a unique with the topography. And then number 4, the special circumstances. The sewer location, I don't buy that, but the lot shape, size, and topography were not created by the property owner. So I guess in the strict application of this, without some of the extraneous things that I brought to light, it does appear as though they meet the 4 tests for the variance. Thank you.
And on criteria 2, I think what makes this property slightly different from the property next to it is the shape. This property is pie shaped. Its immediate neighbor is not. So if that property wanted to put an ADU or a different detached dwelling unit, it probably wouldn't need a variance. It probably might just have 8 feet of setback space. Okay.
May I make a motion?
Yes, you can.
I move to approve the variance request. Do I need to read the full address, or is that enough?
I think that's enough. We have a motion to approve the variance. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. We're going to vote by roll call. So we'll start with Brett. How do you vote?
Aye.
We have 1 for aye.
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 With the reservations I gave earlier, I will also be voting aye.
I mirror your position. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have 6 ayes. The motion carries, and the variance is granted subject to the conditions. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from city staff about those conditions. The third item on the agenda is, I know we have a third item, chair and staff updates. I don't have any updates other than I still live in Tempe. We discussed that earlier. I had a very intense rent negotiations with my landlord. Diane, any other oh, we have meetings, and Brett, you weren't here, I don't think. We have a meeting on the 28th for another setback, and potentially up to 3 items on our June 25th agenda. June 25th and May 28th. So we'll be keeping busy. Yes, Ron?
I do have one question of staff. Are we minus one board member? And if so, are we looking for one?
Yes, we do have a vacancy. Ricky Lynn Gans resigned, so we will be looking for another board member.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm glad I didn't come to it, but they would have needed 4 votes still because there were, even though there were only 6 of us, because we were a short board. And I didn't ask them if they wanted to continue, which I didn't think would be a problem.
Because we don't have an extra.
Yes. So it all worked out. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We are adjourned. The time is 7:06 PM.